In The Sun is Also a Star, the author Nicola Yoon explores many social issues including immigration, stereotypes, and parental pressure. The main characters Natasha and Daniel connect through their struggle to follow their paths as people while meeting their parents' expectations. Daniel's parents pressure him to go to Yale and become a doctor, but he wants to be a poet. This difference creates conflict between him and his parents because of their differing views on his future. Natasha, on the other hand, does not face much parental pressure, but she does feel outward pressure to be the father figure in her household because her father is off chasing his dreams and living in the clouds. We wanted to see how parental pressure affected students on a broader scale, so we looked into some different articles and found one called Pew Research Center, which conducted a study of parental pressure put on students. Their statistics showed the responses of many different age groups, races, occupations, sexes, or parental status in the United States to parental pressure. The majority of the group the center talked to believed that parents in the United States do not put enough pressure on their students. For each demographic, around 55% feel that there is not enough pressure, 26% feel there is a right amount of pressure, and 19% think that there are too much pressure. It is important to note that those who said that they were uncertain were not included in the statistics. These statistics also did not compare public schools to private schools. They serve as an overall generalization of schools in the United States. Parental pressure on students is different in other countries, though. Japan and other countries, for example, have harsher school systems. They call their schools cram schools, which train students to meet particular expectations that are mostly set by colleges and exams. Students learn many difficult topics in a short amount of time and are expected to comprehend it entirely. With this in mind, people feel that there is far too much pressure put on these students in Asian countries. When we compare the American school systems to the many Asian school systems, the school systems are very contradictory. It is interesting to know that two very different school systems that produce very different mindsets can coexist in the same world. What is your relationship with your parents like?
My parents are, in general, really good about school and about extracurricular activities. They want me to succeed, but they don't force me into things that I actively dislike.
I'm very, very close to my mom, but I feel like because my dad works and my mom doesn't, then I'm not as close with my dad because I'm not around him as much. But I'm still close with both of them.
I feel like my parents and I are really close. We do tend to fight a lot about really not stupid but not so important things. But we eventually have a family dinner and then we're all happy again and we're usually very, very close.
I'd say me and my parents have a good relationship. Me and my mom's relationship is better than me and my dad's.
Is there any activity or passion that takes up a lot of your time?
I used to do a lot of sports outside of school, but that's kind of fallen off as I've gotten into high school and as I've had more schoolwork and more pressure from colleges and things like that. I guess musical theater would be one of them.
Music takes a lot of time, and they're not really involved, but they've tried to be involved before they're yet, but I try not to let them.
Dance and musical theater takes up all of my time now that I'm getting into it, and my mom does push me to my limit a lot of the time. She makes me do things that I don't want to do necessarily, but I think she thinks that it's gonna better me in the end. But life.
Definitely. Musical theater takes up a lot of my life, and I feel like my parents are very supportive of what I do.
Music takes a lot of time, and they're not really involved, but they've tried to be involved before they're yet, but I try not to let them.
Do you feel like your parents pressure you to pursue a certain aspect of your life?
I feel like my parents pressure me to continue a sport that I'm no longer passionate about, and I prefer to focus my energy on dance and school, but they're very, very close-minded, and they want me to continue with this sport because I've done it all my life.
Name effect.
They definitely pressure me to do sports, which is not something that I love to do. I definitely would choose to just do musical theater or something with the arts, play an instrument, sing, dance. But they are so caught up in the idea that I need a sport to be healthy that they try to pressure me into a sport even though I don't like them, or most of them. But I guess after some time they just realized that I'm not gonna do it, or I'm gonna do it but I'm not gonna be as happy as I would be if I just do musical theater. So they've kind of learned to accept it.
So you don't think they pressure you as much anymore?
But yeah, definitely.
But she does push me a lot when it comes to musical theater.
Gotcha.
I find it beneficial. It is kind of harmful because sometimes like I get in my head and I'll psych myself out of doing something because I want to show my mom that, you know, like I can do things without her being on my back all the time. So sometimes it's harmful, but then again, like having her in my corner and having her pushing me to my limit, that is also helpful.
Grades, they used to expect all A's. That didn't happen. So now they say A's, B plus, and B's, but no B minus. I think it's helped me become more independent. So far, I think I'm doing fine.
What are your parents' expectations of you? Do you agree or not?
I guess my parents' expectations are the expectations I set for myself. And they always expect me to do very well in school.
They seem to kind of keep their options open when it comes to me. They definitely want me to go to college, and they expect me to do like the regular 4 years of college and then maybe grad school, get a job, go into a field kind of thing. But they don't have any very specific, like, we want you to go into this field, we want you to do this, we want you to go to this college.
I feel like they expect me to do well in school, definitely. But I feel like they were very vague in their expectations, so I set them for myself very, very high. And now that's their expectation, so I have to live up to it.
Sometimes I agree with them to a certain extent. I guess you can say I agree with them. So like she expects me to be the best in my field. So like if I'm dancing and if she's coming to see me, she wants me to like be like the loudest, or not the loudest. She wants me to be like the most moving dancer, and she wants me to be like, you know, the most out there, which is sometimes not like my best, and my expectation is to give my best. And, you know, sometimes our expectations don't meet.
Do your parents pressure you to follow certain beliefs, whether that be religion?
My mom is more religious than my dad, and they tend to fight about that a lot. So I guess my mom is trying to pressure us all to follow more religious beliefs, which I guess I'm doing because I have to, and I like it, but not as much as other things. So that's it.
Not really. I do have to like go to church with them sometimes when I'd rather not, but that's kind of the extent of it. There's not a lot of like political pressure.
Not my mom as much as my dad is. My dad's more religious than my mom is, but they're both like we're both devout Baptist Christian Black people. But you know, like we're still. I mean, my dad pressures me and like makes sure that I'm going to church and I'm reading my Bible, but my mom just wants you to be me.
My mom actually has a different belief than my dad, and I am following in her footsteps, but my brother is following my dad.
How do you think parental pressure felt by international students differs from American-born students?
Based on stereotypes, I mean, I know like some Asian people have like tiger moms and some Hispanic people have like tiger moms. Like I know that much. You know, I know a lot of other Black people whose moms are just like mine. They want the best for their Black child.
Well, since I'm an international student, I kind of know what that means. I definitely think that American students have it a lot easier in some things. For example, I'm from Mexico, and Mexican parents tend to really bug their children to do really well in school. They don't let them, they don't give them permission to do a lot of things. You can't do this, you can't go there. And I feel like American people are a lot freer in certain aspects. So I definitely think that international people have harsher lifestyles in certain aspects.
Yeah.
Well, I know since I've been studying Korean Americans a lot for this project that they faced very different pressures and very severe pressure, way more than most of us do. So I feel like they have way harsher expectations and a harsher lifestyle.
International students, I know that America has, like, it has a really good schooling system, but I know that more, like, sort of East Asian companies, or not companies, East Asian countries like China, Japan, Korea are said to have, at least from what I know, very elite schooling systems, and there's a lot of pressure there. So I think that in America, there's a lot more kind of socially accepted paths you can take.
Do you feel other kinds of pressure in your life, pressure from yourself or your teachers? So, sort of a side question, do you think your parents pressured you more, or do you think you pressure yourself more?
Definitely myself.
Like most of the pressure probably comes just based off expectations they have for themselves and other people have for them.
I'm definitely my own worst critic, and I put a lot of pressure on myself that other people, like, I put way higher expectations on myself than other people have for me, and it's kind of frustrating actually, because I know that my parents don't actually, like, they want me to succeed, but they're not super pressuring. I'm the one that's doing that to myself.
And I agree, because I've always been a hardworking student and I've always tried my best, but I definitely think that my expectations end up stressing me out, and my parents are the ones who tell me, like, settle down, you don't need to do that well in school. So I agree with them, but I think I'm stressing myself out more.
So you think you put more pressure on yourself than your parents put on you?
Yes, a lot.
You think that it, because of the pressure that you put on yourself, it's helpful for your mom to put pressure on you? Okay. Everyone in our group reflected on the topic as well and really thought about our own personal relationships with our parents and pressure. Just like the trend found in all of our interviewees, we also had a common conception that we feel more pressure from ourselves and our own expectations than from parents.
As I have learned more and more about parental pressure, I'm finding that often the most pressure comes from the pressure one puts on themselves to succeed. I know that is mostly true for me as well. My parents have certain basic expectations, such as finishing high school, getting a college degree, and being respectful, but these expectations are not unreasonable. Recently, however, my dad has been pressuring me to pursue golf because he feels that physical exercise is very important. He also pressures me to practice the piano often. Overall, I do think that my perfectionism is my worst enemy. I constantly pressure myself to be perfect, which is impossible, which makes me put even more pressure on myself.
I do feel subtle parental pressure from my mom. The central aspect of my life and my passion is musical theater. Because of my inability to drive and pay for my things, my mom is very involved in it. Unfortunately, musical theater is a tough career to have, and because of this, my mom is very hesitant about me pursuing it in my life. I happen to agree with many of our interviewees about pressure on themselves. I have very high expectations for myself, and I want to be successful and work hard. I think that those personality traits come from my parents, but I don't think the actual pressure comes from them. The two people that I interviewed both said that they pressured themselves much more than their parents did. I agreed with them. My parents care about my grades and what I'm doing with my life, but I'm the one that pressures myself specifically about grades and singing. Most interviewees had the same responses to international students' pressures that I did before looking into the statistics. However, I was surprised that Americans feel that there's not enough pressure on students, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure, but I guess there's a difference between public and private schools.
Personally, I could relate to all the responses from our interviews. My parents don't place any big pressures on me to do anything I wouldn't want to do, except for the occasional activity that might look good on a college application. My parents don't put any intense pressures on me. At the end of the day, most of my stress and pressure comes from myself. I'm my own biggest critic. I was very interested in the fact that most people felt that the more intense pressures came from themselves. It also led me to think, if we have another problem on our hands now, could self-pressure and stress actually be detrimental to our success?